Hi guys, welcome back to another off the record song tutorial. Today I want to take a look at Easy on Me by Adele. Let's see what we can learn from this. This song is fantastic. It's beautifully written, Adele's vocal performance is badass, unsurprisingly, because all her vocals are, aren't they? And the piano playing is legit. It's just the right amount of interesting and complements the vocals beautifully. There's also a bass part that comes in the first chorus and a kick drum that provides a bit of extra rhythmic momentum starting in the second verse. Despite the complexity that's on display here, I'm gonna make a case that the entire tune can be reduced to basically 8 bars of music, a 4-bar verse section and a 4-bar chorus section. Those are the essence of the song, and everything else is a repetition or a variation of those two 4-bar phrases. Let's start on the 4-bar verse section. We're in the key of F major, and the first chord is the tonic chord, voiced with a root octave in the left hand, and a second inversion triad with the fifth doubled in the right hand. Then we get these little filler notes. This little fill happens a lot throughout the song, and it's always some permutation of F and C, the tonic power chord. Sometimes it's this, sometimes it's this, sometimes it's... This is followed by this syncopated melodic motif that pops up a lot throughout the song. The left hand plays a counter rhythm against this melody that creates a really interesting rhythmic texture. Here's the entire first bar. The second bar goes to D minor 7 and it sounds like this. Notice that this is very similar to bar 1, except that the bass note is D and the chord on beat 1 doesn't double the C. The motif in the second half of the bar is identical to the one in the first bar, it just carries a slightly different emotion because it's played against a different bass note. Then we get to bar 3. Harmonically, we can hear this in different ways. It's a little bit ambiguous. My ears interpret it as an A minor chord with a repeated appoggiatura. Appoggiatura is just a fancy way of saying that there's a non-chord tone on a strong beat, in this case F, that then resolves to a chord tone, in this case E, the fifth of the A minor chord. And in the last bar of this section, we hear a B-flat sus2 chord first, voiced like this, which then resolves to a regular B-flat major chord. Notice that the piano doubles the vocal melody in bars 3 and 4. At the end of bar 4 there's a pickup consisting of a B-flat major and a C major chord that leads us into the next 4-bar phrase. And here's the whole 4-bar verse section. And that's the first half of our verse. Notice how much interesting stuff they managed to pack into just 4 bars of music. There are 4 other sections in the song that are almost identical to this 4-bar verse section. And they're the intro, the interlude after the first chorus leading back to the verse, the interlude after the second chorus leading into the bridge, and then the outro that closes the song. The minor differences occur mainly in the last bar of the 4-bar phrase. The pickup at the end of bar 4 only happens in the first interlude, and in the second interlude and the outro, the B-flat sus2 chord does not resolve to the B-flat major triad. Notice also how in the second interlude, the energy is maintained through bar 4 in order to dynamically transition into the next section, which is the bridge. So now we get to the second half of the verse. It begins the same way as the first half, so we'd expect to just hear that same 4-bar phrase again, as is the case with countless verses we've heard in our lives that have a 4-bar phrase that then repeats to form an 8-bar verse. However, in the third bar we get a little hint that things may not be as clear cut. The bass note here is C as opposed to the A in the first half of the verse. In order to understand what happens next, let's look at the vocal melody for a second. In bar 3 of the first 4-bar phrase, there's this syncopated melody oscillating between F and E, which is doubled in the piano part, and it extends to the first beat of bar 4. But in the second half of the verse, she breaks our expectations by continuing that melody through bar 4 of the phrase. But she's not done yet. She now goes up a third and continues that melodic motif for yet another bar. We now have 5 bars in the second half of the verse, and at this point I'm on the edge of my seat. And now in bar 6 she finally finishes the phrase. After a very short breath, we then get the pickup into the chorus. So instead of the 1 bar phrase we heard in the first half of the verse, we get 3 bars of that same idea. Each additional bar raises the stakes, which makes the beginning of the chorus incredibly powerful when it finally hits. This is as good as it gets. So how does the piano deal with all this trickery? Well, just like in the second half of the first 4-bar phrase, here in the verse extension, the piano once again doubles the vocal melody, which leads to interesting harmonic ambiguities. The chords C major and B flat major are implied more than spelled out completely. Here's the whole 6-bar phrase. And as if all that weren't dramatic enough, in verse 2 she messes with our heads again by extending the phrase by 1 bar only instead of 2. There's also an extra little ninja move here. We'll come back and double click on that later. Here's the second half of verse 2. The vocal melody in the bridge is unique, of course, but the piano part is essentially the same as the second half of verse 2, only a bit more intense. Once again, notice the similarities and the differences. Here's the basic progression of the 4-bar chorus section. Each chorus has 2 of these 4-bar sections, and there are 3 choruses, so this bit happens a total of 6 times. And they're all very similar, if not identical. Notice the harmonic rhythm in the first couple of bars. The first chord is played for 3 beats, and on beat 4 there's a brief transitional chord that takes us to the chord on beat 1 of the next bar. In bar 3, that transition chord is shifted to the second 16th note of beat 4, which creates a really exciting spike of rhythmic energy. Once again, we start on an F chord, the same one that opens the verse. Then there's a D minor 11 chord on beat 4. In the second bar we start on a C major chord, followed by F in first inversion on beat 4. In bar 3 we start on G minor 7, followed by another F chord in first inversion. And a few times they add a 9 to this chord as well. I love this one, a major add 9 chord with the 3rd in the bass. And finally, in bar 4 we move from the regular B flat chord on the first 2 beats to B flat sus2 on beats 3 and 4. Notice that we've already heard that move in the verse, except in the other direction from B flat sus2 to B flat. And as with the different versions of the verse section, there are some minor variations in the different chorus sections. These variations happen organically when an actual piano player plays a song all the way through, as opposed to somebody programming a piano part in a DAW and then just looping it. Here's one of the 4-bar chorus sections in its entirety, and it's very representative of all the other ones. Technically, the chorus is a great example of how to add a little flavor to what's essentially a typical quarter note pop piano feel. Mostly this involves filler notes on the 8th note subdivisions like this, or little pickup notes on the last 16th note of a beat like this. One of the best ways to learn from a song like this is to look at, say, the first 4 bars of the chorus and then compare those in each of the 3 choruses. And notice what voicings or rhythms are always the same, and then what the differences are in different incarnations of that same section. For example, here are the first 4 bars of each of the 3 choruses. Learning to play all 3 will dramatically improve your ability to come up with this kind of piano accompaniment yourself. There's one other technique that's used in this song that is so important it deserves its own little chapter. It's basically creating little 1-4-1 progressions. And it's something you hear a lot in the playing of classic piano singer-songwriters like Elton John or Billy Joel. It's also very common in blues and gospel music. It's most often used on the 1, 4 and 5 chords of a key. In this song, we hear it a bunch of times on the F and the C chords in the chorus, and one time it happens in the verse as well. So for example, here's this ninja move used in bar 5 of the second verse. Here it is in bar 2 of the second chorus. Here it is in bar 5 of the second chorus. And there you have it. I hope this was helpful. If you've enjoyed the video, consider subscribing to the channel, hit the like button, leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.